I never imagined that the 500 boyfriend I hired would become a millionaire CEO. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The tension in the air was palpable. My heart raced as I stared at him, this man I had only known for 2 weeks, who was now my lifeline. I had hired him my own personal boyfriend because I needed someone to keep my social life afloat after my last relationship crumbled. But now? Now, he was a stranger, and I was confused by his sparkling ambition and sudden confidence. His eyes shone with something I couldn't quite name, a brilliance that took my breath away. How was it possible that this guy, who arrived with a scruffy haircut and worn-out sneakers, could turn into a slick businessman overnight? It felt surreal. I thought I was the one holding the strings, but it quickly spiraled beyond my control. My mind raced. Was he playing me? Or was this something far more complicated? I remembered how he walked into that coffee shop, the smell of fresh bread and brewed coffee filling the air. He lifted his head, looked straight at me, and I felt a spark. A heart flutter. I was desperate for company, for a distraction from my shattered heart. Maybe I didn't hire him just for show. Maybe I needed him to become who I was afraid of, being a risk-taker. But every day, I watched as he transformed. He went from my 500 boyfriend to someone who began turning heads everywhere he went. There were whispers in the air, hushed conversations around me. Friends began to raise eyebrows. "Is he for real?" they asked. I could feel their judgment like arrows piercing my insides. I had lost everything, and now I was watching him rise. My hands trembled as I clutched my coffee cup, the heat sharp against my skin. I felt torn between admiration and fear, and then there was the night he brought home the secret. "I have an idea," he said, his voice low yet electric. It was something big, something dangerous. My heart raced as uncertainty gripped me. Could he really pull it off? Was it legitimate? Suddenly, it wasn't just my life being unraveled. It felt like a tsunami was coming. I stood close, his intensity swallowing me whole. I could feel the tremor in my voice. "What if it backfires?" I whispered. But he merely smiled, and the confidence in his gaze pierced through my worries. Now, it was no longer about me hiring someone to lift my spirits. It was about a future that could either catapult us to glory or plunge us into chaos. Could I trust him? The clock ticked away, echoing uncertainty, and I knew that in mere moments, everything could change. That night ended with an unexpected twist. A phone call. His face pale, the light fading. "I have to go," he said urgently. Questions raced through my mind. Where was he going? What did this mean for us? As he rushed out, I felt a cold grip of fear. And there I was, standing alone, holding the remnants of a life I barely understood. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The night felt heavier without him. I sat in the dim light of my living room, the weight of uncertainty pressing on my chest like a thick blanket. An endless loop of questions spiraled through my mind. Where was he? Was he in danger? Or had he already begun to weave his next ambitious narrative, one that left me in the dark, like a forgotten subplot in someone else's story? Each tick of the clock amplified my anxiety, and after what felt like hours, I finally gave in to the urge to call him. My fingers hovered over the screen, trembling slightly as I pondered the last words he had spoken. "I have to go." They echoed in my thoughts like a broken record, making me second-guess every moment I had spent with him. What if he had been playing me since the beginning? A fleeting thought that sent chills racing through my body. My heart wanted to trust him, but my mind screamed that I was simply a bystander in his ascent, an accessory in his newfound reality. I pressed the call button, praying he would pick up, praying to hear anything that would quell the rising tide of doubt, but all I received was the steady beeping tone of his voicemail. With shaking hands, I ended the call, swallowed by the sudden realization that I was alone. I slipped into the kitchen, pouring myself an oversized glass of water. The coolness didn't work to soothe the burning anxiety within. Taking a deep breath, I gazed at my reflection in the window, at the shadows etched under my eyes. I looked worn out, but the fight inside me still burned brightly. What had I expected? The man I had hired was larger than life, and perhaps, so was my need for distraction. The minutes dragged on, and just when I thought I would crumble under the pressure, my phone lit up with a text. His name shimmered on the screen, and I felt a surge of relief wash over me. I hastily opened the message, but my heart dropped as I read the words. I am sorry, I can't explain right now. I need to handle something important. Please trust me, trust. The word echoed through my mind, leaving a bitter aftertaste. I had placed my trust in a temporary arrangement like it was solid ground, yet now, with the prospect of his imminent absence, it felt so utterly fragile. Tears pricked at my eyes as I leaned against the counter, the cool marble grounding me in a reality I wasn't sure I could bear. Just the day before, I had felt empowered by his confidence. Now shadowed by uncertainty, I felt utterly lost. I needed to ground myself, to remember that the world kept turning. Perhaps in my despair, I could unearth the remnants of who I was before him. With a determined shake of my head, I set my glass down and went to my bedroom, rummaging through my drawers for the old journals I kept hidden at the back, a repository of my dreams and aspirations that had faded over time. Maybe, in the fragile pages filled with ink, I could find solace, a reminder of my strength. As I flipped through the pages, a wave of nostalgia swept over me. Each entry sang of ambition, adventure, and a determination that felt distant yet familiar. I recalled a time when I was unafraid to chase after what I wanted, long before the troubles of my last relationship dulled my spirit. I felt a flicker of that spark ignite inside me, and for a moment, it overshadowed the growing doubt. Suddenly, the familiar chime from my phone cut through my thoughts, startling me. It was a picture, a grainy image of a sign, a building I recognized but couldn't place at that moment. The caption read, "I'm doing this for us." Don't lose faith. Hope battled against fear within me. There it was, a glimmer of what I cherished about him. But another question loomed larger. What exactly was he doing? Just as I was about to text him back, the doorbell rang, jolting me from my thoughts. I glanced at the clock, midnight. Who would be at my door at this hour? My heart raced as I approached, hoping each step would bring clarity instead of more chaos. I opened the door cautiously, and there stood Oliver, my neighbor from 2 floors down, holding a pizza box and a bright smile that radiated warmth in the cold night air. "Hey, I know this isn't a scheduled pizza night, but I figured you might need some cheering up. Want to join me?" Oliver's kindness warmed my heart, if only for a moment. It provided a light amid the uncertainty, something comforting amid the storm. With a grateful sigh, I nodded. Of course, I'd love that. As we settled on my couch, sharing slices of pepperoni and laughter, I momentarily forgot about the mounting pressures of my life. We talked about nothing and everything, and for a time, it felt like a blanket of normalcy had wrapped around us. But then, just as I was beginning to feel comfortable again, a text from an unfamiliar number lit up my screen. My heart dropped as I opened it, the content jarring against the tranquility I had just found. "Your boyfriend is in over his head. I know what he's really up to. If you want to know the truth, meet me tomorrow at the old warehouse at 8. Come alone." The words hung before me, dripping with ominous intent. Panic set in as the realization struck, this was only going to get messier. Suddenly, the peace of the evening shattered, replaced by the gnawing urgency of choice. Trust him and stay loyal, or risk everything to uncover the secrets he hid from me? Everything all right? Oliver's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts as I stared blankly at my phone, grappling with the newfound urgency. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night settling heavily on my shoulders once more. Yeah, just a lot to figure out, I replied, my heart racing, but deep inside, I knew that what lay ahead was only the beginning of a far more perilous journey. The morning sun poured through the window, casting a soft glow on the remnants of the previous night's joy. The remnants were sweet and sour, the pizza slices still lingering like a fragrance that slowly dissipated into the air, replaced instead by the bitter clench of uncertainty. I lay in bed, replaying Oliver's voice as an echo of normalcy in my mind, but the peace he brought was quickly overshadowed by the text that had disrupted my moment of tranquility. Come alone. The phrase looped in my thoughts like a siren's wail, warning me of approaching danger. I had plans, to confront the truth, to unearth the man I had thought I knew. Yet the pull of loyalty, fortified by the kindness he had shown me, was difficult to ignore. A million scenarios spiraled in my mind. What could he be involved in? Could he be in real danger? I needed clarity. The clock shuddered ominously as I approached the living room, where remnants of the night evaporated in the sunlight. My phone buzzed beside me, lighting up as if it held the answers to my swirling questions. It was a message from him that I am sorry for the silence. Can we talk later? I promise I'll explain everything. Hope swelled in my chest, battling against the shadows of anxiety. I held my breath for a moment, wondering if I should respond, perhaps even begging him to come back so we could confront whatever tangled mess he had wound around himself. Instead, I found myself typing a simple, painful okay. No questions. No demands. Just an acceptance that felt like surrendering a piece of myself. As I prepared for the day, an unfamiliar nervousness settled in the pit of my stomach. I tried to distract myself by diving into mundane tasks: laundry, cleaning, even attempting to cook a lame avocado toast. But even the simplest items lost their flavor, my mind drifting back to the warehouse and the implications of that ominous message. After meticulously avoiding every thought that could lead me to panic, I realized I was still faced with the decision to meet the stranger. Each tick of the clock turned my resolve into doubt. What if this was a trap? As if the universe was sensing my unrest, my phone chimed once more. It was Oliver asking me if I wanted to grab coffee. I hesitated, weighing my options. Should I invite him into my tangled dilemma, or do I keep my anguish a secret? With everything crumbling around me, a small part of me craved the lightheartedness he offered. Sure, that sounds great, I finally replied. I hurried to dress, attempting to mask the storm brewing inside me with a facade of casualness. Arriving at the small cafe, the warmth of the space slid over me like a comforting embrace. I spotted Oliver by the window, his cheerful smile a beacon amid my chaotic thoughts. Hey! Sorry to drag you out of the house, he said, rubbing the nape of his neck awkwardly as he slid a cup of steaming coffee across the table toward me. I mean, it's nice to have some company, right? I smiled weakly, grateful for his kindness. No, thank you for this. As we chatted, I found respite in Oliver's light-hearted stories: the ridiculous antics of his cat, his recent trip to a local art exhibit. Laughter bubbled within me, combating the gnawing fear that was steadily enveloping my thoughts about the meeting later that night. It was only as I caught Oliver's gaze, curious and observant, that I sensed the subtle shift in our conversation. He leaned forward slightly, concern etching into the softness of his eyes. I hope you don't mind me saying this, he said cautiously, but you seem a bit tense. Is everything all right? I froze momentarily, then shrugged like I could shuck away the weight he sensed. It's nothing. Just trying to figure things out, I replied, summoning a smile that felt more fragile than sincere. Hey, if you ever need to talk, I'm here. His sincerity washed over me like a soothing balm, and I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe there was safety in sharing my burdens with someone who understood nothing of my turmoil. But not yet. As we finished our coffees and the time slipped silently away, I felt both revived and restrained, the emotional tug-of-war within me relentless. For a fleeting moment, I wished it was enough. But I had decisions to make, lies to uncover. Later that evening, as darkness crept in, I braced myself for what was to come. The clock struck 8, and dread mingled with determination as I left my apartment, fear and hope entwined as I walked towards the old warehouse. The air outside felt thick with the promise of change, as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for a revelation. The warehouse loomed ahead, shadowy and foreboding. I steeled myself, breathing in the cool night air as I glanced around, aware of how the quiet felt haunting. I arrived at the address, my heart thundering in my chest. As I stepped inside, the dim light barely illuminated the deep corners of the room. Anxiety gnawed at me, ready to swallow me whole. I thought of Oliver and the warmth of the coffee shop, wishing I had leaned into that safety a little longer, but at that moment, the door creaked open behind me, and I spun around, my breath hitching. The figure in the doorway was not what I had expected. "Thank you for coming," the man said, his presence unsettlingly familiar. Terror gripped my heart as recognition settled in. It was someone I had never wished to see, a ghost from my past. His gaze bore into mine, and the chilling realization hit me hard. There were layers to this story I had yet to unravel, layers that could change everything. "Your boyfriend is in over his head," he continued, unblinking. "And if you don't act now, you might lose more than just him. You might lose yourself." My mind spun, trapped between the past and the impending truth, my choices weighing heavy as the shadows engulfed me once more. The course of events ahead felt uncertain, a tightening noose wrapping around what I thought I knew. Now, the real journey was about to begin. Each heartbeat echoed in the silence, creating a rhythm of dread as the haunting figure stepped further into the light. I barely grazed the surface of processing his presence before a kaleidoscope of memories welled up, threatening to drown me. Why was he here, and how was he connected to Oliver? "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, the words barely making their way past my quivering lips. His lips curled into a smirk, a gesture that sent a shiver racing down my spine. "You don't remember me, do you?" I can't say I'm surprised. Though it's quite fascinating that you found your way back to this life. "Get to the point," I demanded, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. "Oh, I'll get there," he replied smoothly, stepping closer, the shadows morphing around him like a malevolent cloak. "But first, I need you to understand that Oliver isn't who you think he is. The life he leads? It's only the facade of the story he wants you to believe." "Stop it." I barked, anger fueling my courage, but inside I felt like a child alone in a dark room. A growing sense of mounting panic nudged at the edges of my consciousness. He sighed dramatically, fixing me with an icy stare. "You deserve the truth, especially since it puts you in danger. The last thing I want is for you to face consequences for being too naive. Why should I trust you?" My voice was a weak tremor, barely masking the tempest of emotions within me. "Because I'm the only one looking out for you," he said firmly. "Oliver is tangled in something bigger than the both of us. A deal that's gone wrong. He doesn't know how deep the rabbit hole goes, but I do. And I don't want you to get hurt." Laughter bubbled up, a wild reaction to the absurdity of it all, but my instincts had already warned me. "And why would you be telling me this now?" "Because I promised someone I wouldn't mislead you," he replied softly, dropping the bravado for a moment. The sincerity in his eyes was unsettling, a jarring reminder of a past I desperately wanted to escape. Who are you working for?" I pressed, stepping back instinctively but finding nowhere to retreat. He cast a nervous glance around, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Listen. I came here not just for you, but for my own safety. You're involved now, and I can help you get out before it's too late." "Only if you want my help." Before I could respond, a noise behind me made my heart stop. The warehouse door swung open abruptly, slamming against the wall. Oliver stood there, breathless and disheveled, his eyes darting between the two of us, confusion wrestling with concern. "What's going on?" "I got your message." I wanted to leap towards him, cocooning myself in his warmth, but I sensed danger lurking. "This isn't what it looks like," I said quickly, searching Oliver's face for understanding. The man's demeanor shifted, his bravado returning. "You might want to listen to me, Oliver. You're playing in a dangerous game, and both of you are right in the crosshairs." Oliver's face paled, and I stood paralyzed, caught between two worlds crashing together. What do you mean, they're coming for you, who you are? For what you have? You need to stop. I shouted over him, my breath coming out ragged. Enough. I won't play this game. Both men turned to me, eyes wide, and for a heartbeat, time froze. I could feel the weight of the decision looming over me like a cloud, don't you see? The familiar voice stressed. It's not just you in danger anymore. You have to choose now. Trust me to help you uncover the truth, or risk everything by standing beside him without knowing what's really happening. My heart raced, heartache intertwining with fear and uncertainty. What do you want from me? I whispered, reaching towards the storm brewing inside me. What I want is entirely irrelevant, the stranger replied calmly. What I can do for both of you matters. The choice is yours. Oliver's gaze locked onto mine, and in that moment, the air shifted. I could almost hear the clock ticking down the seconds until everything changed. Could I trust this man who had haunted my past? Or was Oliver hiding secrets so deep that they could fracture us both? My mind reeled as the weight of the world pressed down on my shoulders. My decision loomed large in the darkened warehouse, and suddenly, clarity washed over me. I knew I had only one chance to step back or delve deeper into this murky, twisted reality. Oliver, I began, my voice trembling as the full weight of the moment rested on my heart. What have you not told me? Time slowed as the answer to that question hung in the air, a silent promise laced with ominous uncertainty. The air thickened around us, laden with unsaid words and hidden truths. Oliver took a deep breath, his eyes softening, yet the shadow of concern loomed. It's complicated, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Complicated how? I pressed, desperate for clarity. He hesitated, his gaze flicking to the man with the smirk, who watched us with amusement, as though our emotional turmoil was a source of entertainment. I've built a life here, one that isn't easy to explain, Oliver continued, his tone turning defensive. Sometimes, the past isn't something you can just share casually. You mean, sometimes the past is buried deep enough to drown someone if they aren't careful? The retreating hope within me flickered like a candle in the wind. The strangeness of the situation wrapped itself tighter around me as the stranger, who had been silent, interjected with an unintended softness. You both deserve the truth, but it's a hard truth to face. No one wants to be the villain. Oliver's jaw clenched, frustration flashing in his eyes. I'm not the bad guy here, and neither are you, he told the stranger vehemently. What do you want from us? I want you to see that your current reality is just one thread of a much larger tapestry, he replied, his voice steadier now. But you need to make a choice on how you want to weave this story. Fingers trembling, I pressed my lips together, the weight of dread settling in my stomach. A larger tapestry sounded all too ominous, as if our lives were puppets dancing for unseen spectators. What do you mean by that? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. Oliver, you're in deep, the man urged, shifting closer to eliminate the space that still lingered between us. And she deserves to know everything to protect herself. That I will protect her, Oliver asserted fiercely, but instead of finding solace in his words, I felt adrift, riding the crest of a wave that threatened to crash at any moment. Will you? I found myself whispering, a mix of hope and doubt spiraling through me. Will you protect me from your own secrets, Oliver? His silence spoke volumes. I stepped back, the tremors of uncertainty coursing through me. I could no longer differentiate what was real from what could be a carefully crafted deception. The door creaked. I spun around, half expecting the presence of more shadows lurking to entrap us. Just beyond the threshold, a figure emerged, the outline indistinct but familiar. Light from the dying day poured in through cracks, revealing a woman whose eyes absorbed the chaos unfolding. Jessica? I stammered, disbelief lacing my voice. What was she doing here? You shouldn't be here. I came to find you, she responded calmly, her expression reminiscent of the fierce protector I remembered during our lighter days. I had a bad feeling. The stranger eyed her, then turned back to Oliver, an air of disdain cloaked in amusement. This just keeps getting better. Stop! I shouted, the rising tide of emotions crashing around me. What is this? A game you're all playing while I'm left to scramble for the truth? Jessica stepped forward, her steady presence infusing me with a flicker of courage. "You're not alone, and you don't have to take this on by yourself," she promised, her voice strong and reassuring. Oliver's brow furrowed deeper, and for the first time, I noticed the slight sheen of fear beneath his steadfast gaze. "You don't know what you're walking into," he said quietly. "Then let me in," I replied, the tears brimming in my eyes now unrestrained. "Let all of us in." Oliver's defenses crumbled as realization dawned. "You can't." Just before he could finish, the lights in the warehouse flickered ominously, casting shadows that danced across our faces. The stranger took a step back, his expression shifting from amusement to an unnerving seriousness. "You think you have time? You don't. Haven't you learned anything?" Oliver snapped, panic and urgency intertwining in his voice. "You can't just threaten people and expect them to yield. Watch your words." The figure's eyes narrowed, their calm rabble roused into something darker. "Time is not on your side, and you all need to choose quickly. There are forces at play that you haven't even begun to comprehend." As an unsettling chill crept up my spine, less than a whisper escaped my lips. "What forces?" But as realization began to swirl into fear, a deafening crash erupted outside, followed by angry shouts, pulling all our attention. The world outside was colliding with our suffocating reality. The stranger wasted no time. "Get out now!" he barked, a commanding authority accentuating his words, urgency lacing his tone. "The choice you make now could change everything, and it might be the last chance you have. Run!" Jessica urged, gripping my arm. "We don't have time to understand everything right now." As I stood between the warmth of Oliver's side and the pressing danger of the unknown, a gut instinct surged through me, stirring the remnants of bravery deep within. But as I took a step forward to make a choice, everything crystallized into chaos. I felt a sharp tug on my heart. In the chaos, a shocking thud echoed just behind me, the cacophony of shouts transforming into cries of fear, and suddenly, all I wanted was the heart that beat beside me to remain safe. "Wait!" I cried out, fear punctuating my voice as I turned around just as two shadowy figures rushed through the doorway, their intentions clear, but there was no time left to think. The gravity of my next choice compressed around me like water closing in, and with every heartbeat, the world I thought I understood began to unravel with each new complication. The urgent cries outside reverberated through the walls, each scream a reminder of how precariously close we were to a reality that loomed darkly ahead of us. My heart raced, caught in the turmoil as I instinctively glanced towards Oliver, searching his face for guidance, for a roadmap through the confusion that now threatened to consume us. "Stay close!" he shouted, grabbing my hand, his grip warm against the coldness of panic that shadowed us. But in the haze of chaos, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, something deeper beneath the surface of his protective demeanor. Jessica clutched my other arm, her eyes wide with fear yet resolute. "We need to stick together," she urged, squeezing my hand for reassurance, as if anchoring me against the storm that was brewing. The world outside seemed ready to implode, and I could feel the weight of the decision looming over me like storm clouds. As we hesitated, hearts pounding with uncertainty, a burst of bright lights illuminated the warehouse. The figures in the doorway advanced further, chins lifted in defiance. Each step they took seemed to siphon my breath away, erasing any semblance of clarity we once had. I thought of the tapestry that stranger had mentioned, our lives unwittingly interconnected in an intricate design we were yet to fully comprehend. "Let's go!" Oliver commanded, pulling me toward a side exit, urgency thick in his voice. But as we moved, the air vibrated with an unseen tension, the kind that whispered warnings and pulled at unspoken secrets lingering between us. With every step I took, I wrestled with the disarray in my heart. Was I willing to dive deeper into the murky depths of Oliver's life, the shadows cast by his past, and the mirage of safety he claimed to offer? Was this connection worth the potential heartbreak, the uncertainty of whether I would still recognize him on the other side? Suddenly, Jessica moved ahead of us, leading through the dark corridor. "This way!" Her voice was a buoy in the tumultuous sea of emotions flooding me. Oliver followed, but I lingered just a moment longer, torn between staying safe and chasing the truth. I needed to know more, needed to understand the intricacies that tied usual of us together in this dangerous dance, but the moment of hesitation cost me dearly. Just as I started to turn, a figure lunged forward from the shadows, colliding with me, sending me sprawling to the ground in a tangle of limbs. The cold floor bit into my skin as chaos erupted around me, and fear sliced my spine. "Get off her!" Oliver's furious cry cut through the clamor as he rushed forward, but a second attacker emerged behind him, blocking his advance. "Oliver, no!" I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the din of violence. My heart thudded painfully in my chest, a drum of desperation as I scrambled to regain my footing. Every ounce of my instincts screamed for me to fight, to get to him, but I was frozen, trapped in an emotional limbo, between fear for my life and the desperate need to protect the one who was supposed to protect me. As I finally found my feet, an unexpected kindness unfolded amidst the chaos. Jessica leapt into action, blocking an attack aimed at Oliver, throwing herself between him and the aggressor. It was a brave move, one that sent a surge of admiration and horror through me. My best friend was putting herself in harm's way for me, for us, and the weight of that realization pierced through the haze of fear. "Jessica!" I howled, my throat raw as I surged forward to help, but another blow sent me crashing back. I could only watch as Oliver and Jessica fought together, a united front against their assailants, but each moment felt like a lifetime, filled with panic and dread. Just when I thought their resolve might falter, a beam of light burst through from outside. Shouting intensified, and in that moment of distraction, a louder volley erupted from a group of men rushing into the warehouse. The attackers, those shadows that had threatened to encircle us, began to retreat, swallowed by the chaos as police sirens blared in the distance. Slicing through the tension. "Keep moving!" one of the officers shouted as forces flooded the area, confusion giving way to hope. But hope came tethered with new uncertainty. What would happen next? What were those shadows running from? And what secrets still dwelled in Oliver's past, waiting for the right moment to emerge? As safety began to seep into the edges of reality, I took a moment to breathe, catching my breath and glancing at Jessica. "Are you okay?" I managed to ask, the tremor in my voice underscoring my fear. "I am fine. Just stay close," she replied, but there was a quiver in her words, a trembling that echoed my own unease. We nodded in silent understanding, prepared to face whatever awaited us next. But as Oliver stepped beside me, his expression shifted suddenly, as if he was grappling with something that lay just beneath the surface. "There's something I need to tell you," he started, his voice laced with dread. Before I could respond, a figure detached from the chaos, a woman with sharp features and an enigmatic presence that clamored for attention. "You don't understand, do you?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the noise like a razor. "This isn't over. The truth is far more dangerous than you realize." And just like that, my heartbeat quickened again, trepidation mingling with the remnants of hope that something would finally clear the fog of uncertainty. The moments we had shared now felt burdened with shadows, and as we stood there, bracing ourselves for whatever revelation lay just beyond the veil, I knew in my heart that our saga was just beginning, the tapestry still unfinished and fraught with challenges yet to come. I felt Oliver's presence beside me, solid yet distant, as the reality of the woman's words settled over us like a heavy mist. The chaos of the warehouse began to fade into the background, both physically and emotionally, giving way to an unsettling stillness. "What do you mean, the truth is far more dangerous?" I asked, though the words came out barely above a whisper. I could feel the tension in the air, every beat of my heart echoed by the uncertain silence around us. The woman's dark eyes flared with intensity. "You're entangled in something you don't even comprehend yet. People will die if you don't understand what's at stake." I glanced at Oliver, searching his eyes for answers, but they were clouded with turmoil. It was as if they held a storm raging behind them, and the weight of unspoken words loomed large. He opened his mouth to speak, yet the sound drowned in the rising noise of the police officers shouting at each other, attempting to control the frenzy left in the wake of the conflict. "The truth may cost you everything," the woman continued, her gaze shifting between me and Oliver. "You can't hide from it. It will find you. Before I could fully absorb her chilling declaration, an officer approached us with a stern face. "We need to get you all out of here, now." He cast a nervous glance toward the retreating shadows where the attackers had vanished. They could come back. The woman didn't flinch, she looked at us resolutely. "You'll figure it out too late. Trust nobody." "Wait!" I called out, but she slipped away into the gathering crowd, her figure dissolving as quickly as she had appeared, leaving only questions in her wake, swirling around me like leaves in a tempest. "Move!" Oliver urged as he took my arm, pulling me along. I could hear Jessica trying to reassure the officers, her voice hearty but trembling. With each step, I could feel the shadows creeping back in, suffocating the hope I'd begun to grasp. "Are you okay?" I finally asked Jessica. "You put yourself in danger back there." "I knew I had to help," she replied, her voice steady but her eyes revealing that underlying fear. "But we're safe now, right? Isn't that what matters?" Safe? The word felt heavy on my tongue. But what about what she said? "The truth, the danger." "Let's not think about that right now," Oliver interrupted, his voice firm. "We need to focus on getting out of here." As we emerged from the warehouse, I was struck by the warmth of the streetlights, a stark contrast to the darkness we had just fled. The police cordoned off the area, and journalists crowded the sides, their cameras flashing like stars in a chaotic sky. Pushing through the throng, we finally reached the end of the street, where a row of police cars awaited, blinking blue and red. I looked back at the warehouse, the scene behind me melting away into the past, but anxiety clung to me as tightly as Oliver's grip. "Let's get in the car," one officer instructed, motioning for us. We climbed into the back seat, nervous energy coursing through the vehicle as the officer closed the door behind us. I turned to Oliver, trying to read his expression, but he was focused on the scene outside, shadows playing across his features in the dim light. "Oliver," I began, my heart thumping. "What was it you wanted to tell me back there?" He shifted his gaze, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. I can't." "Not now," he stammered, the weight of his hesitation reverberating boldly in the air between us. With that, an icy finger of dread slid down my back. "You mean, there's something more? There's something you're not telling me?" Before he could reply, the vehicle jerked slightly as we pulled away from the curb, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure emerge from the shadows of the alley, a man with a battered leather jacket and a face that chilled me to the bone. "Turn around!" I screamed. The officer, startled, glanced in the rearview mirror just as the man raised his arm, revealing a glint of metal that caught the streetlight. My pulse raced in a throbbing rhythm as I realized the danger had found us again. The words of the woman echoing in my mind. The truth was not just dangerous, it was lethal. "Hold on!" The officer shouted as he accelerated, but I was already unraveling. What kind of truth awaited us? And why did it feel like every step we took brought us deeper into an abyss we might never escape? As we sped away from the scene, I clutched Oliver's hand tightly, fear mingling with anticipation of what lay ahead. The shadows were closing in, and we were hurtling toward a revelation that could leave scars deeper than any physical wound. I could only hope that the tether binding us would withstand the trials that were yet to come. The car sped through the night, the city lights blurring past as if the world outside was merely a jumble of colors and noise, a stark contrast to the turmoil and fear brewing within. I could hear my heartbeat reverberating in my ears, a constant reminder of the fragile state we were in. The officer's hand stiffened on the wheel, his knuckles white, a reflection of the tension pulsing through our small enclosure. What was that about? Oliver finally managed to break the heavy silence beside me. His voice cracked slightly, but his gaze remained fixed on the road ahead, drawn towards an unknown destination. "I don't know," I replied, fighting against the swell of panic. The woman, she didn't say everything, but I could tell she meant it. "Something is coming for us, and it's not just the attackers." Jessica shifted in her seat, the worry etched on her face. "Maybe she's just trying to scare us. To keep us quiet. But what if she's not?" I countered, the knot in my stomach tightening. I looked at Oliver, desperate for reassurance, but all I found was confusion mirrored in his eyes, a storm mirrored in my own. What if we're entangled in something far worse than we imagined? The car took a sudden turn, and I was jolted back against the seat. My breath hitched, and I closed my eyes against the onslaught of fear. In that fleeting moment, I could almost imagine that everything would return to normal, that the last few weeks had just been a surreal dream that would fade upon waking. "Where are we going?" I asked, opening my eyes to find the officer glancing back at us, his expression uncertain. "To the precinct," he said, steeling his voice, yet it trembled slightly. "We need to debrief. Get you secure." "Secure?" I echoed, the words sounding hollow and empty. How can we be secure when the truth is out there? When we know so little? It was as though my words had set off a chain reaction, shrouding us in an even darker cloud of helplessness. Without thinking, I reached for Oliver's hand, intertwining my fingers with his, needing the warmth and comfort his touch provided amidst the chilling uncertainty. He looked at me, his expression poignant, fear-woven but also imbued with an undercurrent of willingness to confront whatever lay ahead. "Well, figure this out together," he said, squeezing my hand gently. The soothing assertion did little to suppress the worry rising inside me, but there was a spark of determination there I couldn't ignore. As we approached the precinct, a sudden heaviness settled over me, more oppressive than the fear itself. What awaited us behind those sterile walls? I sensed that whatever answers we sought, they would come at a price that may very well break us or bind us together forever. The car stopped, and the officer opened the door, ushering us outside to a cacophony of flashing lights and bustling officers. I felt a tremor ripple through my body as we stepped onto the pavement, but an unexpected sound caught my attention. "Over here!" A voice called urgently from the shadows, and before I could process it, a woman stepped forward, her face partially concealed by the brim of a hat. My instinct told me to be wary, but there was something desperate in her plea. "You need to listen to me. They're looking for you." "Who?" I asked, panic seizing me once again. She glanced around, her eyes wide with fear, and leaned closer. "The people you saw back there. This isn't over. They won't just disappear." "What do you know?" Oliver demanded, his grip tightening around my hand. "They think you have something valuable," she whispered, urgency dripping from her voice. "Something they can't let you keep." Time stood still, and the weight of her words crushed down on me. Valuable? What could I possibly have that would interest anyone? But deep down, a flicker of memory ignited, reminding me of the woman's ominous words: the truth, the danger. "Please. You have to trust me." "I can help," she implored. Before we could respond, a loud voice boomed from the nearby precinct entrance. "What's going on here?" The officer who had driven us stepped back, alertness transforming his demeanor into a protective stance as he approached. In that moment, the woman's eyes widened in realization. "They're here," she hissed, glancing wildly for an escape. Then, without another word, she turned and darted into the shadows, disappearing as quickly as she had come. "What just happened?" I turned to Oliver, desperation creeping into my voice. "Did you hear what she said? We need to get out of here." But before he could respond, the ambience shifted, the air thickened with an imminent dread. The officer wheeled around, eyes narrowing, and the tension perched on the precipice of chaos. "Get inside. Now." As we rushed towards the precinct, uncertainty flooded me. We were outsiders in a mystery tangled with obscured threats, each one inching closer, and the woman's warning echoed in my mind. What was it that they believed I possessed? As we crossed the threshold into the sterile precinct, darkness enveloped us, raising an unseen veil over truth, despair, and an impending revelation that would change everything. The horror of what awaited us twisted in my chest, and I could no longer tell where hope ended and danger began. The shadows were closing in, but somewhere behind that inky veil, I felt the glimmer of a truth that could shatter every illusion I had if only we could survive long enough to uncover it. As we hurried deeper into the precinct, the chaos of lights and voices transformed into a tunnel of anxiety. The officer led us through a maze of fluorescent-lit corridors, and every click of our shoes against the polished floor echoed like the pounding of my heart. My mind was still reeling from the mysterious woman's warning, her urgency digging into my thoughts like a thorn, something sharp and unsettling that wouldn't let go. "Keep your head down," the officer instructed, glancing back at us intermittently. Jessica fell behind momentarily, stumbling over her own feet, lost in her thoughts, while Oliver held me tightly. "What do you think she meant?" he whispered, his voice low but strained with concern. "I don't know," I admitted, my temples throbbing. "But if they think we have something of value, what could we possibly have?" Jessica interjected, catching up to us, her eyes wide with confusion. The stress made her usual bravado falter, exposing the fear lurking beneath her surface. For a moment, I focused on her. Jessica had always been the most practical among us, the one who could dissect any situation with sharp precision. Her pursuit of the truth was a double-edged sword, but in this moment, I saw her vulnerability laid bare, a poignant reminder we were all in over our heads. As we stepped into a sparsely furnished room, the tension escalated, hanging in the air like the scent of a storm. An officer with a grim facade sat at a metal table, shuffling paperwork that seemed to loom with significance. He gestured for us to sit, his eyes boring into mine with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "All right," he began, his voice firm but weary. "I need you to tell me everything you know about the events leading up to this moment." The words spilled out of me in fragmented pieces as I relayed our terrifying encounter. Each revelation felt surreal, a narrative too fantastical to be real, but the look in his eyes told me he believed every word. "Listen closely," he said, his expression shifting as he leaned in. "You are not safe here. The individuals pursuing you are highly skilled, and they will not hesitate to do whatever it takes to retrieve what they think you're hiding." The horror of his statement crashed over me like a wave. "But we don't have anything," I exclaimed, panic dripping from my voice. He continued, a resolute expression knitting his brows together. "That's what we need to figure out. Until then, you must trust no one outside this room." Oliver shot me a worried glance, and I could see the gears turning in his mind, questions buzzing like bees in the air. It was evident we were all grappling with the same dilemma, the fear of the unknown hanging heavy above us. As I tried to gather my thoughts, the officer's radio crackled to life, pulling us back into the present. "We have a situation in the parking lot," a voice shot through. "Lock down the precinct." "Repeat, lock down." My heart thudded painfully in my chest as the officer stiffened, his eyes widening for only a moment before he regained composure. "Stay here," he commanded quickly, rushing out of the room with a purposeful stride. Tension curled tightly around us, turning each second into an eternity. I could feel the weight of fear constricting my lungs. "What if they find us?" Jessica's voice trembled, a stark contrast to her usual bravado, every second underscoring our vulnerability. "Don't think like that," Oliver replied, his grip on my hand tightening, grounding me momentarily. "We need to get out of here. If they're locking down the precinct, it means they're here already." A flutter of urgency surged in my veins, echoing in the periphery of my thoughts. "But where would we go? We can't just walk out of here. They could be waiting for us." Just then, the door swung open abruptly, and another officer rushed in, his breath evident in the way he spoke. "We need to move. There are armed men in the parking lot." Panic ignited as a wave of dread swept through our trio. "This way," he urged, leading us towards a side exit. My heart raced, my body was gripped by equal parts fear and adrenaline. As we ducked and weaved through the precinct, the chaos outside roared like a storm threatening to swallow us whole. Just when I thought we were free, the dull sound of thunder cracked, sending a ripple of fear through my entire being. "Keep moving," the officer barked, pushing us toward a door at the end of the corridor. Just as we reached it, an explosion ruptured from behind, shaking the very foundations of the building. In that split second, everything morphed into chaos. My heart dropped as I turned back, and for a brief moment, I caught sight of the officer who had been leading USA Shadow falling in darkness, the fleeting moment of a struggle before all I could see was a blinding flash. Run. I screamed, urging Oliver and Jessica forward, adrenaline fueling my limbs as we burst through the exit into the night. The scent of smoke wafted in the air, mingling with our panic-stricken breaths, but something deeper lingered, a thread of uncertainty woven through the shadows, and beneath that a nagging doubt gnawed at my mind. As we sprinted away, breathless and disoriented, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening, whatever we were ensnared in, extended far beyond our current understanding. Like pieces of a puzzle that hadn't yet revealed its true picture, I could sense that the singular truth was waiting for us, laying just beyond the fog, becoming palpable, and yet always just out of reach. Then I saw Hema figure emerging from the blackness just ahead, cloaked by the night but unmistakably familiar. My heart raced with fear, mingling with something else, an insidious hope. Did I dare believe that amidst all the chaos, help had arrived, or was it just another trap waiting to ensnare us? I rushed out of the building, my heart pounding as I pulled Oliver and Jessica into the dingy alley behind the precinct. My breath came in ragged gasps, adrenaline coursing through my veins, mixing with the heavy weight of dread that followed us like a phantom. The explosion had reverberated through my very core, transforming our lives into a tumultuous storm. We never asked for this, never sought to be entangled in such a dark web. I pulled them behind some trash bins, instinctively seeking refuge from prying eyes. We need to find a way out of here, I whispered urgently, observing every shuffling shadow, every sound that could signal danger. The world felt unreal, every instinct screamed for action, but I was still grappling with the knowledge that we were deep into something dark, something dangerous enough that it could devour us whole. What about the officer? Jessica's voice trembled, her fear evident. He was trying to help us. I felt a pang in my chest. Yes, he was, but I wouldn't allow myself to think about anyone else right now. We couldn't afford that luxury when our lives hung in the balance. We can't go back. We're on our own. Just as those words left my lips, a noise erupted from the entrance we had fled, a cacophony of shouts, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps. They were coming for us. I locked eyes with Oliver. The urgency radiating from his gaze sparked an ember of clarity, cutting through the storms of confusion that swirled within. We stick together, no matter what, I whispered, fighting to keep my voice steady. And together, we would face whatever lay ahead. That was the promise we needed to forge in the uncertainty, that we weren't abandoning each other, despite how disoriented everything felt. Back here, I gestured towards a narrow passageway that branched off behind the dumpsters. We hustled through the sticky darkness, hoping it led us to safety. The air shifted around us, thick like molasses, every heartbeat seeming to amplify the silence surrounding our hurried footsteps. I glanced behind me, instinctually searching for shadows darting through the gloom, but there was only the lonely echo of our own urgency. Do you think they'll follow us? Jessica's voice broke through the quiet. We can't outrun them forever. Maybe they won't be looking for us right away, Oliver suggested. But we can't stay in one place too long. With those words, he lightened the weight of fear pressing on my heart, pulling me back towards a semblance of courage. And that was when I caught another flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. It was the Earth woman from the precinct. I recognized that determined look on her face, and despite the terror swirling around us, my heart momentarily fluttered with hope. Over here. I hissed, waving her forward despite the nagging voice in my head warning me to trust no one. She approached, urgency etched into her features. You have to come with me. They've breached security. The safe house isn't far. You'll be safer there. Safe house? I repeated, skepticism pooling in my stomach. You expect us to believe you? My tone was defensive. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of yet another dangerous truth. I know you're frightened, she replied, her eyes soft yet fierce. But I'm not your enemy. You have someone important that they want. If we don't move now, you will never know the truth. Every instinct screamed for caution, but Oliver voiced our desperation in that moment. What makes you think this will work? I can only guarantee you one thing: you need my help if you want to survive. Trust me, even if you can't yet. The choice hung heavily in the air, palpably clinging to us like the darkness wrapping around the alley. The shadows were closing in, but the pull in my gut urged me to believe her, if only momentarily. I nodded, and though uncertainty gripped us all, it was enough. We had to act. The way back leads to the street, she said, glancing cautiously toward the entrance. But my car is a little further inside the alley. We followed her, hearts slipping into a synchronized rhythm of fear and hope as we turned down the passageway. I could hear my breath mingling with the whispers of my companions, the very fabric of our connection coiling around the thrill of what we faced. Without warning, a figure appeared from the shadows, the flash of a knife gleaming under the flickering light creating a split second of dread. "Stop right there!" a man barked, his voice dripping with venom. We had nowhere to argue, and my gut clenched in horror. "No!" I shouted as I pushed forward instinctively, shielding Jessica and Oliver. In that moment, time slowed, and I felt the adrenaline surge through my veins. "Run!" Oliver shouted, pulling my hand and yanking me back just as the man's knife sliced through the air, narrowly missing my side. In tandem, we bolted past him as he lunged, adrenaline kicking into the next gear. Would we make it? "Keep going. Don't look back." The woman led the way through the maze of alleyways, each twist and turn feeling like a pulse racing against time itself. I couldn't shake the clench of panic building in my chest, keeping pace just behind Oliver, who kept glancing back, scanning for the danger we were on the verge of losing but simultaneously evading. Our breathless pursuit became almost a trance. As we darted through corners, we crashed through the open space into a parking lot illuminated by flickering lights. "The car's just ahead." The woman led us forward, but the sight of the crowded space sent a chill rocketing through me. Suddenly, voices shouted from behind us, scattering like leaves in the wind, heavy footsteps chasing the echoes of our hurried heartbeats. "You can't escape." A chilling voice rang out from the shadows, a figure emerging as another wave of hopelessness swept in. I ran faster, propelling us forward. I reached for Oliver, my heart leaping into my throat. "Please." But even as I ran, I felt something shift inside Miriam's, wrapping around my thoughts, pulling me back to the reality of what was at stake. Tears blurred my vision as I sprinted towards the car, desperate and terrified. The woman fumbled with the keys, her hands shaking. "Quickly! Get in!" We climbed into the car like hunted prey, glimpsing the sanctuary of light. The engine roared to life, but the sounds of footsteps approached too quickly. "Get down!" she yelled as someone slammed against the window, the force rattling the glass. My heart raced as I dropped below the dashboard, seeing the urgency plastered on the woman's face. The gunfire erupted into the air, sending shards of glass glittering around us. We had to move. "Hold on!" she shouted, her voice commanding but laced with fear and determination. The tires screeched as she slammed the accelerator, pushing us forward, weaving through obstacles in a panic-driven flight. I couldn't believe my eyes as the world outside the window spiraled into a blur of lights and confusion, but hope surged through my veins as we tore down the street. We were alive, at least for now. But just as that hope began to stabilize, a thought flickered through my mind: what secrets awaited us at the safe house? And, as I glanced into Oliver's eyes, I knew we wouldn't be able to pretend much longer. The truth could shatter everything we fought for, and that reality was growing heavier in my heart with each passing moment. The car swerved violently, the woman expertly navigating the roads while keeping us just out of reach of our pursuers. But the darkness was never far behind. Where to now? I finally managed to ask through the fear woven into my chest. The woman smirked, her eyes fiercely determined. "To a truth you won't believe, and a danger that will chase you forever if you don't face it. It's time to uncover what you truly possess." I felt my heart drop. The fraying edges of my world were about to unravel, leaving a complete truth and a fractured reality in their wake. As we pulled into an unmarked driveway, everything crumbled into silence. This was the moment where clarity could spell liberation or devastation. Somewhere deep inside me, I knew what awaited would change us all forever. "You're going to want to brace yourself," the woman said as she parked, looking at us with a knowing gaze. It was time to face the specter of our choices, time to confront the shadows that had led us to this moment. And in that defining moment, as my heart raced and my breath became shallow, I understood that the fight against the darkness was only just beginning. But as I took Oliver's hand, the fire of hope ignited, illuminating the path for us all, ready or not. I would learn the truth, and somehow, I hoped we could endure it together. "Together," I whispered, looking at them one last time, gathering courage that refueled with every heartbeat, and out of the darkness, I could feel our shared strength, a tapestry woven of trust, resilience, and the promise of whatever valiant story awaited. This was only the beginning, and my promise to myself was that I wouldn't let shadows haunt our path any longer. We would emerge into the light together.